Alright, 7 o'clock, we'll call the meeting to order. Billy, please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Record show all board members are present. Mr. Board, has public notice been given?
Yes, it has.
It's on to public comment. Per policy 0167.3, anyone wishing to participate in the period of public comment must be a resident of the Richland School District, the parent or legal guardian of an enrolled district student or an enrolled district student. Persons wishing to participate must be physically present at the meeting and must register in advance. A total time allotment of 30 minutes will be given for public comment. Each participant shall be given 3 minutes to address the board. A translator may be used to translate verbal communication to the board. If such translation services are used, 6 minutes shall be given to that participant, with only the first 3 minutes being designated to the total time allotment. Speakers are not permitted to make inflammatory comments, use inappropriate language or gestures, attack specific persons, or make a specific person the subject of their remarks. Please see policy 0167.3 for a complete list of requirements and restrictions. If a person is unable to adhere to these rules, they may be directed to end their comments. I do not have any registration forms, Mrs. Steele. You don't either?
Nope.
All right. On to agenda item 4. 4A, District Administrator's Report.
Okay, just 3 quick things for the board and the public. First of all, a week from Thursday on the 21st of December, we'll have our buildings and property and personnel meetings. On that Friday, the 22nd, there are 2 things that the board and public should be aware of. One is that this will be an early release for our students and our staff before the holiday break begins. And the second, specific to board members who are looking to run or not run in the April election, that is the last day to declare non-candidacy. Thus far, we do have one. Mrs. Wertz has turned in her papers and has chosen not to run in April. So anybody else that's on the ballot, keep that date in mind. And that is it.
Thank you. On to 4B, Board Member Reports.
Curriculum met on December 7th. So we went over the different state convention offerings. So anybody that is not able to go, just if there is an article or a certain topic that you want somebody to sit in on, just be sure that you let one of your, I know Sheila, you're going, and Scott, you're going. So maybe let one of them know so they can sit in on one of those topics. And then administration is also looking at getting a recorded version so that maybe after the fact we can still listen to different topics that were discussed. We got an update on the community resource officer, which is going great. It's been all positive feedback. I think they just want more of him, so it's going really well. We reviewed the survey results regarding the school song, and I just wanted to thank the student council for gathering that feedback, taking the time to do that, and at this time there's no proposal to take any further action. We discussed the learning management systems. There is a timeline for that, so January, February, March, there's different agenda items that they want to do each of those months, and then hopefully at the end of March they would have a decision to allow for proper training and transfers and things like that for the following school year. We also reviewed the 24-25 calendar. There was a couple different proposals that will need to go back to personnel before it comes to the full board in January. Proposals included the traditional model as well as a model that incorporated the like 2 o'clock early outs every Wednesday, which would allow for teacher collaboration, so different look there. That would really the benefit of that would be that there would be less early outs and in-service dates scattered throughout the year, and the teachers would really have that collaboration. And then lastly, we got an update on the 23-24 goals and priorities, which there's a lot of good progress there. A lot of the work's going to be analysis data in January, and then we will get an update in January. Full board.
The policy committee also met on December 7th. Went over the schedule at a glance. At this point, we are not planning on meeting in January. We also discussed new policy 7250, which is commemoration of school facilities, which essentially is naming rights. If there would be either monetary donation to put a name on a building, or if it's in honor of someone or in memory of someone, we are in the early stages of developing that policy, using a lot of our neighboring schools to gather information on what they currently have in place. So that will be discussed further at our February meeting. And then we also discussed policy 7510, which is use of district facilities. We're in early thought process of that in having potential use for the staff. Right now, the way the language reads is any staff member that would want to use that for personal use, have their kids come in and shoot hoops or use the weight room, something like that, they would have to fill out a facility use form. So at this point, that seems more cumbersome than it needs to be. So we're discussing that opportunity.
Thank you. We're going to come back to 4C, and for right now, we're going to go on to 4D, the bullying task force.
The bullying task force, Lisa Brown, intermediate school principal, is absent tonight, and she has asked that that be put on January meeting, if that's okay with the board.
That's good. All right, 4E, the IT and safety report, Mr. Ostrander.
Good evening. I'm going to start with the IT side of things. The Children's Internet Protection Act requires that the district have a filter in place to prevent students from accessing inappropriate material. And so the district always has a two-layer filter that takes place. Oh, thank you. And we filter at the firewall level, and then after internet traffic comes through the firewall, it's filtered with a product called Aristotle K-12. So the reason I bring that up is because by state law and federal law, we must have those in place, and we must let the public know that those filters are in place. And the reason that we have to do that is so that we can access E-rate funds. And now E-rate is the federal program that allows us to purchase hardware for internet at a discounted rate. So every year we use E-rate funds to upgrade and update our internet hardware, switches, access points, items like that. We also get a discount on the internet service itself. This year we were able to put in a cap on our smart panel upgrade project for each classroom. And so now all 3 buildings have those interactive panels in place. We continue training with cybersecurity. We have a product called KnowBe4. Research shows us that 80 to 85% of all cyber attacks come through phishing emails. And so we regularly are training our staff on being conscious of phishing attempts. And so that is something that we have ongoing and we'll continue to do in the future. And just as a point of interest, this is the last year of our 4-year Chromebook lease, and we will be looking at entering into a new lease as we look at the 24-25 school year. So that's the end of the IT side. Any questions? Okay, on to the safety side. Every year, the state of Wisconsin requires all school districts to run school violence drills. And then a recap of those drills is presented to the board, and then the board can ask any questions and make any comments on the result of those drills. You probably have a paper copy of that in front of you because I couldn't figure out the technology and make it work right for board docs. So I apologize for that. It was beyond me. But anyway, after taking a look at that information, these documents will be uploaded to the Department of Justice website, which is a requirement by January 1st of every new year. And along with that, every 3 years, the school board must review the district safety plan, and then that review must be submitted to the DOJ. And just to give you a heads up, next year, the 24-25 school year, will be when that 3-year review must be done by the board. That's it for safety. So does anyone have any questions? Thank you very much for your time.
All right, 4F, foreign exchange program.
So Kathy Fry is our foreign exchange program director. Kathy's provided a lot of the content in your board book. Currently we have 8 full-time foreign exchange students that when I say full-time, they're here for the whole year. They're mostly juniors and seniors. You can see the list of those in your board book. We also, each January and February, we have a short-term exchange program where we get students from Argentina that come and spend time on a short-term basis. It's usually about a 5-week program starting early January and going through early to mid-February. We're expecting 10 students and a couple of mentors to be traveling along with the Argentina program. And then as far as outgoing exchanges, the board approved back in 2022 our foreign exchange program to explore some outgoing options. We did not have the interest at that time, and so we do not have any students that are studying abroad at this point. Kathy is trying to revisit that, see if there's any interest, and if we do get a student that is looking to do that as part of a foreign exchange program, we will bring that back to the board. And then finally, the last thing that she's got on her memo here is International Night, which they recently just had in November, as far as some, and also had an appearance on the morning show with WRCO. Our foreign exchange program is really a great opportunity for our students to become more culturally aware, as well as we think that it's a very good benefit for those that are coming into our program to learn more about public schools and culture in the United States. So Kathy does a great job with the program. If you have any specific questions that I can't answer, I'm happy to try to seek out answers from Mrs. Fry. So does the board have any questions or comments that you'd like me to try to get answers to if I can't answer it?
Is 8 current full-time historically about average for us?
I believe that's darn near close to being average, yes. Mr. Bosworth, you got the most history at the high school. It seems like it's almost always right around 8 or 9.
8, 9, 10, 11, 12 some years. Yeah, some years we come back and ask for more.
Do we have a
10?
max capacity?
10.
For any of our students who are interested in going international, how do they go about getting information? Is it just contacting Kathy, or is it?
Yeah, they can start off with contacting Kathy Fry. If they don't have her direct, they can contact district office, and Mrs. Steele, Ms. Rothery, myself will get them in contact with her and get all the necessary information that they need.
And how is that information disseminated to the students as far as the program is even available?
It's a great question. I'll see if I can get that answer for you.
Is it only juniors and seniors need apply in that circumstance?
I believe so, but again, I will try to get that information.
Do the students' parents cover the cost if they do one of these programs?
Yes.
So there's no help from the district at all?
Don't believe there's direct help from the district. There may be foreign exchange club money or funds that they have available, but I don't believe it's district funded in any capacity. taking notes here. I'll try to get answers to all those and confirm it.
Any other questions from board members? All right. Want to back to 4C then, the Richland Center Partner School report.
Okay, so as Ms. Seifkes is getting ready, just going to give the board and again our public, the partner school is our alternative project-based school. This is the first year in its existence. This is being held down what was formerly known as East Hall on the east side of the UW Richland campus. And Dr. Sherry Johnson oversees our charter school program, including the partner school. And Kim Seifkes is our lead teacher at the partner school. So Kim, whenever you are ready, you
Sure.
can take it away.
Yeah, I am excited to report. We're getting there. I have 13 kids right now, freshmen through seniors. At this point, all of them are either job shadowing, working, or volunteering daily. I provide transportation for them when I can. And then we are project-based learning. So right now, our big project is they are working on building cutting boards. They're making candles. They're making end tables to sell in the community. And they're pretty excited about getting that going. So we're hoping to, by the end of this week, we'll have a place at the Richland Locker. And so we have a few other places that we're looking at too, that are have been more than willing to allow us to be there. We've gotten a really good, from what I can tell, we've gotten a really good response. Anytime I've been contacting people and asking if they'd be willing to have some of my students job shadow, possibly work, or volunteer. And we have a lot more opportunities that we're still looking at and exploring. But it's been really fun, I guess would be a great way to put it. These kids are amazing, and giving them a different way of showing what they're interested in and what they know. It's just amazing, in my opinion. So anybody's welcome. If anybody wants to come down and take a look at what we do, you just have to let me know if you're coming, so I can let you in. But we have a good group. Anybody have any questions?
What's your school day normally like as far as when do you start, when everybody disperses?
Sure. It can vary on the day, but in general, we try to get kids there between 8 and 8:15 in the morning. There's always some exceptions if they're working or something in the morning time. We have a meeting every morning, so a morning meeting, check-in, and then a lot of times they're off working on their projects that they have chosen to do. At this point, like I said, there's a lot of collaboration though, because everybody's trying to get things done, get things built, for us to start having the products for sale. But in general, the project-based learning usually happens between like 8:15, 8:30 to 11:15. We usually go for a walk every day. We have lunch, and then the kids that are out, whether they're working, job shadowing, volunteering, that's usually when they head between like 11:30, 12. Some kids actually are coming back at that time because we do have some kids that are taking classes up at the high school. So some are taking them in the morning time and then they're coming back in the afternoon. So there's usually someone always there in regards to students. It just kind of varies as to how many and when they're volunteering or working.
What are we looking at for enrollment numbers for the 24 and 25 school year? Is it going to be around 13 or
No.
for more?
No, we're looking to do more than that. This year was kind of trying to get everything figured out in regards to how it's going to work. where we're going to put everybody. So, no, we're definitely looking at expanding. I can't give you a number at this point. I mean, that's something that we are going to be figuring out, obviously, before the end of the school year. But definitely want it to grow, and we have the ability to grow at the school that we're at now. So,
Can I say something about that? I just had the DPI meeting about the charter grant today, and so they set a minimum of 20 students in order to apply for the charter grant. So that's a number that's out there. I don't know if that's on the low side or if what we have to collaborate a little bit to make that, figure it out.
Can you guesstimate how many students would be a full building? Just logistically, how many desks? Could we do 30?
I would say potentially.
It's
I
not
guess-
100-person
No, I
size
would, no.
logistically.
No. I guess it kind of depends on how we're going to set up the rest of it. I mean, definitely this year we have room to spread out because of how many we have. My goal though is to still keep it where they have their own spots. That's something that I think is really important when I talk to other places that have alternative schools. That was one of those things where they wanted to keep their spots there. So they had that place, that feeling of, you know, belonging, and that's their spot. But I would definitely think that between 20, 25, 30, I'm sure that's a possibility.
There's lots of different kinds of learning that can happen in a space like that too, so that's something else we have to conceive. There's project-based learning, we're also an alternative school, so trying to figure out how all those things can work together. We'd also talked about possibly coordinating with some other programming, so sky's the limit. It isn't, you know, humongous space, but it's not small either, so we're trying to figure it out.
Have you seen a big change in the mindset of students when they first come into where they are now with it?
Yeah, yes, I have. I think some of them were either just kind of done with school, and then I think some of them were trying to figure out where they were, where they belong, what they wanted to do. And not that every single one knows what they want to do at this point, but I think that they really have this sense of ownership, if anything else, for their learning, and it means something to them. So because of that, it's really made a difference in regards to how they are and what they're doing, what they're, like the effort that they're putting into things definitely has changed. And it's been really neat to see. I mean, we still have work. I mean, don't get me wrong, I know we have a lot of, we have a lot of things that we're still figuring out, but yeah, it's been a lot of fun to watch them.
Have the 2 murals been completed?
Yes. Ish. Yes, for the most part, yes, they have. There's one of them that we're changing a little bit. It just went farther than we thought it was going to be, so we are just making sure that it's tamed back down a little bit. But yeah, in general, they're done and they look really nice. So.
How the students adapted to the, you have to get so many credits and so much in each subject matter, so the English, the math, science,
Yep.
social studies, how has that transition been and how is that going with?
It's because of the program that we're using, which is HeadRush, they can see their credits grow like visually, and that's been huge for them. So I can hear them talking about it. Oh, we need to make sure that we're getting this. Again, it's giving them they're in the driver's seat at this point. So they're looking, to figure out like, all right, if I do this project, what can I, how much of that will go to English or go to science or go to social studies. So I think it's going well. I think they're getting, like, understanding what they need to do in order to get those credits that they need, and they're wanting to. So.
I think what's neat with the HeadRush program is as soon as an activity or project is finished and graded, their credit numbers grow. So it's not the end of a quarter or anything like that, it's immediate as soon as it's graded. That's what I was going to say earlier. With HeadRush, it's a really nice visual tool for students.
What kind of tools would make your job more effective, more efficient? What things do you feel that you need at this point to be more successful?
Nothing more than what I'm getting, I guess, at this point. Just figuring it out, but it's been nice because we're figuring out together. It's not just me trying to figure things out. The kids are willing to jump in, give suggestions. I mean, I can't really, I'm not going to complain about anything. However, in regards to, as long as I have transportation that I can get the kids to and from where they need to be, but it's been really consistent as of recent, which is nice. That would be my only thing that I would say. But again, in general, I've been able to have transportation so I can get the kids where they need to go.
Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
It's on to item 5, the minutes, 5A. Is there a motion to approve the prior meeting minutes of November 27th, 2023?
So move.
Motion by Mr. Bailing. Is there a second?
Second.
Second made by Mr. Downa. Discussion? Mr. Bailing.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye. On to item 6, financial items. The approval of statement of cash.
I move we approve the statement of cash dated December 6th, 2023.
Motion was made by Mr. Dowd. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Ms. Troxel. Discussion? Ms. Troxel?
Aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Right, on to 6B, approval of invoices.
I move we approve Community First Bank General Checking Account checks number 85819 through number 85864, ACH number 232400598 through 232400682, and EFT number 202300038 through 202300043 for a net total of $1,081,879.12. This is for the purpose of general operating costs of the district.
Motion was made by Mr. Dowd. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded made by Mr. Huntemer. Mr. Bosworth, anything to add?
Just a couple of the large dollar amounts maybe that people would be wondering about. If you look on page 13, about 2/3 of the way down there, you can see an expenditure to BL signs for a little over $19,000. Those are for the scoreboards. We gave BL signs about 75% of the cost up front, and then this would be the remainder. The scoreboards are up and operational. Mr. Lemke's smiling big about that. And then on page 14, about 3/4 of the way down there, an expenditure for Kramer Brothers, interior remodeling, about $54,000. We had some things done to the interior of the building, the high school office, the library, and the district office had some slight remodeling done over the summer, so that's what that money is for.
Thank you. Discussion? Mr. Dowd?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
On to agenda item 7, consent agenda items. Mrs. Steele.
Motion to accept the donation of donuts at the Richland Center Primary School valued at approximately $52 from the Dunkin' Donuts per policy 7230. Motion to accept the donation of money valued at approximately $250 to the partner school from Thrivent Financial per policy 7230. Motion to accept the donation of money approximately $600 to the partner school from the Richland Rotary per policy 7230. Motion to accept the donation of valued at approximately $11,250 to the Richland High School and Partner School from the Richland Center District Foundation and Paul Mullendor per policy 7230. And motion to accept the donation of Milwaukee cordless cutoff grinder and battery valued approximately $250 to the Richland Center High School from Julie and Ryan Carnes, State Farm Agency per policy 7230. Motion to accept the State Opiate Response SOR grant as presented. Motion to approve the food service grant as presented. Motion to extend the current contract with Town and Country Sanitation for the next 5 years at our current rates. Motion to approve the MOU with Southwest Cap to rent our Jefferson building for 23-24. Motion to approve the revised job descriptions as presented. And motion to approve the budget transfers for the 23-24 fiscal year as presented in accordance with the provisions of the Wisconsin Statute 6595A. This requires at least a 2/3 majority vote. And that is it.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve consent agenda items?
I'll make the motion.
Motion made by Mr. Dowdna. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Mrs. Dickman. Discussion? Mr. Huntemer?
Aye.
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 On behalf of the Board of Education, we'd like to thank Dunkin' Donuts, Thrivent, the Richland Rotary, the Richland School District Foundation, and Mr. Mullendor, as well as Ryan and Julie Cairns from State Farm for their generous donations. Is there a motion to approve the modified agenda?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Billing. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Mrs. Wertz. Discussion? Mrs. Dickman?
Aye.
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 It's on to agenda item 9, information and discussion items. 9A, the district transfers and vacancies.
So if you look at the PDF for the certified staff, we've got a couple of positions there. We've got the school counselor position open, that's pending action later this evening. And then if you look at the non-certified PDF, we've still got the night custodian, we've got 2 of those positions, and then we recently accepted the resignation for our athletic facilities custodian. This would be the person who does a lot of our outdoor maintenance for the athletic fields, mowing, things like that. And we are accepting applications for that as well. So that's the other position that we have open. Any questions from the board on transfers and vacancies at this time? Thank you.
Right, on to 9B, the 2024 early graduates.
So each year, we do have a handful of students who look to graduate early. They have to meet all of the necessary credit requirements. They have 26 credits that they have to meet, and then there are certain criteria that they have to meet within those 26 credits. But we do have a handful of students this year that are asking for, or that have met the criteria or will meet the criteria either at the end of quarter 3 or quarter 2. Quarter 2 would end sometime in mid-January. Quarter 3 would end at the end of March, right before spring break. So these are the folks who have believe that they will meet that criteria for graduation, and if they choose to graduate early, they can do so. They can still walk across our stage in June, even if they do graduate early, but a lot of these students want to get off to start potential college with online classes or join the workforce or whatever it might be. So there are 16 listed right now. We do have high school administration present as well if you have any specific questions, not necessarily about the individual people, but the process itself.
Do we know what a normal year looks like as far as average early graduates? Mr. Bosworth, maybe you. historically?
Yeah, in the past, we've had some historical numbers in there. They didn't make it in there this year. Yeah, it's been as low as 4, it's been as high as the 20s. It's been slowly climbing since we moved to the quarter block system. Kids are able to accomplish more classes in that at a faster rate.
Mr. Board, is my understanding that if you graduate early, then your spring sports is not an option, since you are a graduate?
That is correct.
Right?
Yes.
Is it also possible for an individual to graduate early and still be valedictorian come graduation time?
Our policy outlines how we define the GPA. I'd have to research that policy for sure. Maybe Liz or Ryan know that, but we would follow our policy as it relates to GPA calculation and what meets that criteria.
Great. 9C, the Q1 discipline report.
All right, I apologize again to the board for not having this ready to go at the last board meeting, but this is the first quarter discipline report. First quarter ended after the first full week in November. Wanted to get it on the 22nd of November, but had some technical issues. You do have all of the information available. We now have 3 years, we're on year 3 of being in this current configuration with 3 buildings, with the primary school being pre-K through grade 2, intermediate school grades 3 through 6, and then the high school being grades 7 through 8. So that's the data that we're comparing. The large PDF, the Q1 disciplinary data, I've tried to summarize this a little bit cleaner for the board. I know it's easy to get overwhelmed with just lots of numbers, and so I've tried to include some more visuals now that we've got a few years of some data in here. So the first couple pages of that PDF list our 31 different disciplinary offenses on the left-hand side, and then each of the grades, and then the number of offenses that there is within that grade. Obviously, we just have quarter 1. This will be a growing table as we get quarter 2 data, quarter 3, and then quarter 4. So you can see pre-K, 4K and kindergarten on page 1, grades 1 through 3 on page 2, 4 through 6 on page 3, and so on. And then if you get down to page 6 of that PDF, I'm not exactly sure what it is in the printed board book, but you'll see the district totals. Again, this is just quarter 1, so we had 328 total offenses. That is likely done by significantly less number of unique students. In other words, it's very, very possible that one student could have many different offenses. Okay, so this is not 328 students. This is the number of offenses that they can have, or that they have. The PDF that I attached earlier today and then handed it out to those of you who have paper copies, that shows the total disciplinary data, total number of offenses on the historical average. So I mentioned that we had 328 for this quarter. That's up slightly. That's in green on the bar chart. Up a little bit from 22-23 quarter 1. That's in orange, and then the 21-22 is in blue. So we are seeing a slight increase in offenses. This could have to have as much to do with how we are reporting things and the consistency of which we're reporting things, as well as possibly an uptick in some of those things. Moving back to that PDF that I was alluding to earlier, after the chart that shows all the numerical values, I've taken each of those 31 offenses and I've tried to create a line graph for you to see if there's any significant trends for each one of those violations, starting with 21-22, then 22-23, and now 23-24. This is all specific to quarter 1 for each of those years. So kind of the hope in doing this was to give the board a visual at what's happening with some of the offenses. So some things that I saw On page 12 of that PDF, you'll see that verbal confrontations, that's basically doubled in the last 2 years. And so that's a disciplinary offense that we're aware of. We are seeing an uptick in students trying to confront adults and students more often, and they are getting wrote up for that. Also, on page 14, this one might be the one that's most concerning. School threats, we had a total of 1 in a combined total of 1 in the first quarters of each of the last 2 years, or total of the last 2 years, and we had 10 this year. I would say that anecdotally, I've seen this has been our biggest uptick in offenses, serious offenses that we have, and so it's important for parents that may be listening to this to make sure that they're having those communications with with students. I know our staff are having similar conversations with students. There are some things you just can't say, and you can't make threats to individuals and or our school, or there will be consequences with that. So we are seeing an uptick in that. And then the last 2 trends that I saw, page 15, the personal electronics, that has also doubled in the last 2 years. We're seeing a high uptick that would be mostly related to phones. And then the very last one on page 17, the violation in tech policy, just seeing that's continuing to rise. So those are the 4 trend lines that I saw. Happy to continue to evaluate or present this data how the board would see fit. This is obviously something new, seeing these individual charts for each one. I'm not sure if it's helpful or if it's not helpful, or if you'd like to see it presented a different way, but I know I did hear last year that it was difficult just getting these big charts with all these numbers in them and trying to decipher. So hopefully this is a little bit better, but again, our high school administration is available tonight. The lower levels will have to get the questions. Both Mrs. Brown and Mrs. Hardy were unable to attend tonight. So, what questions does the board have, either in terms of what you'd like to see in the future or specific questions?
What are we seeing on violation of the tech policy? What seems to be with that one?
Yep. Where's the button? I think a lot of it is our consistency. Like, this is now going into year 3 of really trying this out, and our staff members are being more consistent with it. I think as the hope is, as we continue through the school year, we'll see that start to level out or decline. The students are understanding the expectations of what's asked for them during the school day. So I think that's the biggest thing. I think something like that it's a fairly minor offense, but it starts out pretty heavy as the students are understanding what's asked of them, especially our incoming 7th graders and new students that aren't familiar with it. So that's the big thing, at least for up here. Speak up.
And I would add to that, certainly not to make light of that, Mr. Dowd, but even though it is significantly rising, there were 10 total offenses in the first quarter. So this is not running rampant by any means, but we are certainly seeing an increase, no doubt about that.
An example of that, I assume, would be the use of profanity searched on a keyword in Google. Is that accurate?
Are we talking?
Tech policy.
Tech policy
violation.
Tech policy would be inappropriate use of the district-provided tech that we can monitor with the building. So I take that back. That minor, it's a little bit more elevated. The personal use of technology would be the cell phone violation. So this one, it's what our search engines are catching and what we're made aware of. I think our tech monitoring programs are getting better at what they do.
What type of conversations are you having with the staff to make sure that there is consistency for enforcing the various different rules, policies, that obviously the more consistent the enforcement of it is, the higher the number that will most likely be included in this?
Yep. The big one is obviously when staff members refer a student, they can click whatever option they want for what a student has done, right? They could put defiance or handbook violation or tech violation, whatever it is. One of us three always sees that and does the action. So if it's incorrectly labeled or after investigating a situation, we feel like it should actually be labeled this. I think that's huge for the consistency. In terms of the immediate referral, it can be challenging at times because there's staff with different philosophies that are in this building. So we meet as much as we can with our time and talk about some of those situations for discipline and what we're looking for and when you should remove a student from class and kind of going over those things.
I think in addition to that, we have Wednesday morning staff meetings, so if we're seeing some inconsistencies, we can bring them up at that time, and then we also use a SharePoint morning communication with our staff, so we review just those expectations and reminders, cell phones, make sure that students are off them, because if you let that slide, then it's not fair to your partner next door to you that is enforcing that. So I'd say we have those conversations weekly, just as reminders.
Thank you.
Just a quick question, because I don't remember. When was that cell phone policy changed? And would that be reflected in these statistics as an uptick, because now that is actually no longer allowed at all?
Yep, you can kind of see, I wanna say I'm not 100% accurate. I believe it was second semester in the 21-22 school year when we first went to that. I think John can speak on that and confirm that or not, but I believe that's when we went to it. Last year was the full run of it for the full school year, so we brought it on heavy to start that, and then this is year 2.5 of it. So hopefully the hope is it starts to level out and decline.
That was how I remembered it too, but I don't have it written down anywhere, so.
With the verbal confrontations, is that student staff, or all of both?
So speaking just from the high school standpoint, when it's labeled verbal confrontation, it can be student-student, but the majority of them, and I'd have to look at the grade breakdown up top, but I'd say the majority of those are student staff.
Any other questions from the board?
Is the graph helpful? Those individual charts? Okay.
I think will continue to be helpful as we get more information for more long.
Right,
time.
3 data points is a lot
Across,
hard
yeah,
to
across a
we
longer
start to see
period
some
of
true
time.
trends.
It's still helpful.
Okay, if you have any other thoughts on how you'd like to see that, please let me know.
Would it be possible, and maybe it's a big ask, but you mentioned 3 data points. Is it possible to have all 4 quarters of each year as a data point? So at this point, we would have 9, for example? The only reason I ask is because what if you were to find that there seems to be a spike each year, 3rd quarter, and if you were able to plug in each quarter's data point, you might be able to jump ahead of something or wonder, why do we always get worse at the 3rd quarter, and focus more heavy at that beginning of?
Yeah, my thought, and I'm happy to take the lead, and I think this will address it, but have each quarter be on the same chart, but in a different color. So we would be able to see 4th quarter is always significantly lower than 1st quarter, or we have that big spike, and then we'd be able to see that over the course of time. That was my thought, so see how that goes. But I think I understand what you're asking.
On to 9D, the district report card.
Okay, so each year, the Department of Public Instruction, or DPI, gives every school district, public school district in Wisconsin, a report card. Our report card recently came out and is available to the public, and I thought it would be nice if Dr. Johnson could give the board and the public a nice overview of what they're looking at when they look at the district report card for the 22-23 school year. So this is last year's report card reflecting last year's data. So Dr. Johnson?
Thank you. So as you can see, this is the document that's in your board book. Just note that's a live link, so anytime anyone wants to go on and have a look at what the DPS website says about this year's report card, it is there. You can actually access all the years prior also, which is a nice resource to have. So I'm comparing the 3 school years to kind of give you some clarity on things. The 21-22 and 22-23 school year are the only 2 years that reflect our configuration as it is. So where 7th grade is included in the high school numbers, and where the intermediate building is no longer a 6-8 building, it's a 3-6 building. So some of this is a little squishy, and so keep in mind that bottom row right there is not, isn't the same group of people as the top 2 rows are. So, and something else to consider is a 4-star school or a 4-star school district is a score of 70 or higher, and 58 and higher, 58 to 69.9 is a 3-star school. So you'll see where we kind of line up as far as those things go. The primary school does not have state assessments in it, and so that's why they do not have any data. And the ROA has too few students, so we could, it's independent, it could cause you to recognize a student. So anything smaller than 20, they don't put on anything public. So the priority weighted areas, every school district gets a pie graph that looks like that, and nobody's looks the same, except for the bottom half of the graph. The bottom 2 quartiles are what everybody else would have. The top 2 are vary based on the economically disadvantaged. So based on our high number of economically disadvantaged, the state focuses primarily on growth and instead of achievement. Because what they do, and I'll show you that later, is they really look at the rate of growth of a student as well as their achievement, but the rate is what they value more for schools with high economically disadvantaged. The priority scores of achievement. So keep in mind that this is 3 years of data. So this isn't just this most recent school years. This is an average. And what they have, it's a nice little graph that shows the gray is the state and the purple is us. And what this is looking at is the forward test data, the pre-ACT, so forward is 3rd through 8th grade, and the pre-ACT is 9th and 10th grade, and the ACT is 11th grade. So those are the groups that we're looking at in ELA and math. We also have the DLM, which is an alternative assessment that we give to our students who receive alternative instruction, primarily students who have a significant delay in their academics or their development. This achievement is assigned scores. So every time a student is scored, if they score below basic, it's 0.5. If they score basic, it's 1. If they score proficient is 1.5 or proficient is 1, sorry, and 1.5 for advanced. And so what they do is they take every student. There's some really cool bar graphs that you can see that has a vertical line, and it shows the positives and the negatives. So anybody who went down, they look at it by groups. So they'll look at socioeconomically disadvantaged, they'll look at students with disabilities, they'll look at English learners, they'll look at a bunch of different races, and they'll break it out by gender also. And they kind of show you how you fall and look at, and I can't show that in public because it is identifiable in many cases. But there are some of those things that you can see on the public webpage that are really interesting. But there's lots of them, so I didn't want to get too far in the weeds. Something else that plays into achievement is participation. So there was a year where we didn't test at all, or we did some of the testing but not all of it, and then the following year where we were not held accountable for that. So anybody who didn't want to test, because a lot of our students were virtual, they didn't make them come in and test. And so some of our data is, this is it, that's where we're at. Everybody's kind of got some of that happening, it's not just us. Everyone survived COVID, so survived some of the flexibilities to the advantages or disadvantages of our learners. But we're getting better participation. This year we have 95%, actually 96.7% participation. So our data for this year is going to be much better, and moving forward it will be also. Growth area. So achievement measures how much they attain, how much knowledge they attain, and the growth area measures how fast they do it over time. So students, their learning is reflected here as far as the rate goes. And as you can see, we outscore the state, which is kind of nice. We have a lot of students. We outscore the state in ELA and almost in mathematics. And something to consider, things that I've been reading say that math was the part that was hit hardest by COVID learning. There's so much foundational knowledge that has to happen in math. And so a lot of times what we were told by the state was, okay, take the same state standards, don't dumb it down, just continue to teach, keep moving ahead, and as they need help, the word they used a lot of time was backfill, or scaffold, or support, kind of fill it in, but years worth of learning can't be just backfilled. So we have students with gaps, and it's hard to build on a poor foundation. So that's what we're trying to figure out right now, is how to best support these students. But to me, this growth score, which is what helped our score, our district score go up the most, in my opinion, is this piece, and that's really hopeful to me. I'm glad to see that this piece is changing it in an upswing. Target group outcomes. The target group is the lowest 25% performing students in our district, and they follow them. So we actually have a chart of students that we know who these students are, and they follow them through the next year to ensure that they are growing, to ensure that we are supporting what they need. And so they, I just lost my train of thought. Oh yeah, that's the part that I like, is this is like a little mini report card for us to kind of take a look at that group of students. How can we help them move out of the bottom 25%? So this kind of gives us a picture of that. So in achievement, you'll see, compared to the state, compared to the students that are not the target group, they did not outperform them, but they outgrew them. So they may not have gained as much skill, but they gained the skill they did gain faster. That's what the difference is between achievement and growth, both in mathematics and in ELA. That's essentially to help us figure out our gaps. So essentially, we did see, and you saw too, our math learning has some room for growth. So some of the things that we have been working on, the high school has a new math resource. This is their first full year in the adoption, where they've gotten fully trained, and they're working through all the kinks and figuring out those things. And usually when you adopt a new resource, there is a dip in scores. So I'm hopeful for this coming year that we'll see a lot of growth. This is the area for chronic absenteeism and graduation. Drink of water here. These two are correlated. Many times when one is low, the other is low, or if one is high, the other is high. And again, remember, this is the bottom 25% of our students. This isn't everybody. The gray is everybody. That is not in the 25 percentile. The top is the 25 percentile. It's important to consider that the reason students are chronically absent. A lot of it is connections, or it can be performance-based, where they feel they are at a deficit and they cannot gain the skills they need to perform in their same age peer classrooms. And so then they don't want to be here because they don't feel like they can do what everybody else is doing. And then another part is behavior, relationships with their peers, things of that type we know can also get in the way of a lot of that chronic absenteeism. We have a lot of mental health things that we're supporting also, that as we move through this year, we know that through our goals that we've set, that we are addressing a lot of these things by finding kids and finding out if kids have connections, if they have friends, finding out if our teachers have connections, if they have friends, and making sure that people are being supported in ways that we haven't measured prior to now. So I'm really excited to see our data grow as this year goes. And then the next part is graduation. Again, this data is lagged. This is 21-22 data. Oops, sorry. They're considered chronically absent if they miss more than 10% of their possible attendance days. So if you have 174 days, that'd be 17.4 absences. After that is chronically absent. That's like without doctor's notes, without those types of things. That is when they miss too much school. That can impact their learning. And we all know the students' chances of learning increase exponentially if they are here physically. Like I said, they correlate to each other, but they do not track students who haven't been in the school district for 90 days or more. The next part that they take a look at the report card is post-secondary participation. So they take a look at advanced courses. So in our AP, we have a 36.9% participation, which is higher than the state average. Our dual enrollment, I checked on this. This is not right, just FYI. We are still working on some of the coding of our classes because the data that the DPI pulls, they don't ask us to fill out anything. They just come into Skyward and take it, which is how it's designed. I'm not saying that's wrong. It's just what it is. So we are looking into that to ensure that we can get our dual credit courses coded properly so that we can make sure and get credit for it. Credentials, we had 5 gain them. This next year, we're hoping to have more. As our staff gets more experienced, because a lot of our CTE staff is quite new in the building, and then with Kim coming on board also, as they are all growing in their knowledge and experience, this will impact our post-secondary participation for our students. And then work-based learning, we're doing pretty well there. And that's actually going to go up quite a bit. Then there's arts information. We have a higher percentage in art. We don't offer dance. Music is much higher. We know this. Our music programming is extensive here, and then we don't offer theater either. And then I wanted to include this because I know that there was some social media talk about the U.S. News and World Report rankings. And so I just kind of want to show you what they look at when they rank schools. And they said it's from the 23-24 school year information, but it's not, I put on here, not all the data is proper. So I'm not exactly sure where they're getting all the information. They say it's from the DPI's website, but their percentages for our economically disadvantaged is not correct. And I'm assuming they're saying the second high school is Eagle, that it's not our school. So I was just curious as to what all this meant. If they said that some of our schools didn't get scored, it's because they fall below a certain percentile. I guess to wrap all this up, the reason I feel it's most important for us to acknowledge that we have growth. We have growth areas. But we've made a lot of growth too, so we should be very proud of where we've come from where we've been. COVID was hard on everybody, and it's time we stop alibying ourselves and just do our jobs and really work hard with our students, and our students need to do their jobs and stop alibying themselves also. Really helping us just to kind of lay the excuses down and just get it done now. So I'm looking forward to seeing what the connections information will give us to see that our students and staff are feeling connected and that impacts attendance and our graduation rates. I'm also excited about the new ELA resource that our high school has. We are piloting in the elementary also, both ELA and math, which should impact both things too. And then the teacher mentorship program here at the high school is really making great gains at getting alignment happening so that the teachers all know what is being taught in which classes and where, at which point, all those state standards are being covered. And the PLC work at each building where they're considering all pieces of standards and report cards and all of the things. So we have a lot of work to do, but I'm really proud of us. So I appreciate your teamwork on this, and I'm excited to see where we go next. What questions do you have for me?
Just
real quick for clarification, the participation data and the, like, this is the arts course information, anywhere it says 21, 22, that is in fact 22, 23.
No,
It's 21, 22, but the report card says 22, 23.
that's the crazy part about this whole thing, is they pull data from different years, and they do averages sometimes, then they do value-added things sometimes, and so the reason I was so nervous tonight is because I have a hard time remembering and understanding where it all comes from and how it all fits together. Truly, it's just, we need to make sure our students are learning, and this information can help us understand that. But yeah, when the data isn't all from the same year, and it's an average of 3 years, and some of our data isn't from the same buildings because the buildings look different, and it's a lot. But this is what we have, and it's grown, and so I'm happy about that.
Are we able to break it down for each class? Say K through 12, you can break each class apart and get the rankings on each class?
You bet.
And use that for data as far as, okay, class, say, third graders were doing awesome, they get to fourth grade and they have a huge drop. And then they go to the next grade and they have a huge increase. Can we use that data to, is it the curriculum or is it the instruction? Where we fall on that?
Yes, we absolutely can. It's really interesting. I went to a school improvement meeting at CISA, and they gave us this worksheet they had created with some spreadsheets that did certain things, and it helped me pull all the data from each of the grade levels, and it showed each student, and it was in kind of a bubble format, so you could see all the kids in the bubble and all the kids outside the bubble, and names were on there. And so I shared that with our building principals, and primarily with leaders that might need to know some of that data to guide some conversations. We also have staff that have access to, we have WISE, what you can see online is WISE-Public. There's a not private side, but a more secure side called WISE-for districts. And so we have staff members who can have access to the data just like I can and look at everything right down to the student. So it'll show us every score. Some of this data is broken down into segments of English, segments of math. There's all kinds of information in there. It's really interesting.
Thank you.
Sherry.
9E, the referendum discussion.
Okay, so just really about 3 points that I want to make, and then open it up to any questions that the board may have regarding this. The first is property tax bills will be coming out soon, and the district has always used a mill rate of $9.12. Okay, that property tax owner will pay $9.12 for every $1,000 of property value that they have. Okay. You will also likely hear in the coming weeks, if you haven't already, the municipalities talk about mill rate and how they talk about mill rate as it relates to the school district or any component of their tax bill. For instance, the city might say that the school's mill rate is closer to $13. Okay, and so the question is, why are these numbers different? And the reason for that is because state statutes dictate how the two different organizations report mill rate. State statute says that when a school district reports mill rate, it is based off of the equalized value, or when you get your property tax bill, that's listed as the fair market value. However, when municipalities report mill rate, they have to, by state statutes, they have to refer to it and reference it as it relates to assessed value. Okay, so they're truly, it's the same dollar amount that the person is paying, but they are truly referencing it off two different numbers. The assessed value that is on your property taxes likely hasn't changed for years. Okay, and if it has changed recently, it likely will not change again for years because municipalities will assess different properties on average once every 10 years or so. Okay, I know my personal tax bill that assessment has not changed since 2007, I believe it is. So 16 years, it's been the same. The fair market value, or the equalized value, that's more in line with what the property owner could sell it for or what it's worth, okay? That changes every year. So the school's using that number when it reports its mill rate of $9.12. The municipality is using the assessed value, so as they're levying more money, that mill rate goes up because the assessed value never changes. I know that's a lot and I'm talking with my hands, but I just want you to be aware that when those two the municipalities and the school district report mill rate, it's not comparing apples to apples, okay? It's comparing apples to oranges. It's the same bottom dollar for the property owner, but they're comparing it off of two different numbers, okay? So that's the first point. I'm happy to answer any questions in regards to that if you would like. The second thing is just kind of an update. One of the options that was presented by Nexus was there were a couple of different options as related to this approximately $40 million option. One was potential addition of a fitness center and gym onto the Richland Center High School. The other was the option of, well, instead of building a gym and a fitness center, what if we could secure Simons, right? And I told you we hadn't had any conversations with the county. I have had some conversations with the county since then. It doesn't look like their timeline is going to work in any fashion, right? They are looking at a minimum of July 1 for even acceptance of any proposals. And this could be well over a year or past before they make any decisions. Now, with that, I want you to know that we're continuing to have conversations with the city and the county to explore all options. But I did want you to know that it's looking less and less like that's a possibility. But again, we're still working on it to see, is it truly feasible or is it just not feasible? Is it not even an option? So I wanted to make the board aware of that. And then finally, just to give you an update on where we're at. So at the last board meeting in November, the board approved the use of the Morris Leatherman Company to conduct a phone survey. We're going to call 400 different residents of the district, different demographic groups. That process has started. I know of two individuals that I know personally, and I don't really know that many people, that have received phone calls. Okay, so that process is happening, and they are fully underway and are trying to collect the data from the different demographic groups. They hope to wrap that up by the holidays, take the time in between Christmas and New Year's to to compile the data, get it to us by the first part of January. It looks like we're probably going to have to present that at some committee meetings in the first week in January. We'll have to schedule those committee meetings in January so that we hit the most board members, and then we will record it for those of you who can't attend the committee meeting. And the reason why that's the case is because those committee meetings are on that Thursday prior to our Monday board meeting. And so if everybody has had a chance to hear the presentation, it will allow you to make a more informed decision as we start really looking at what we want to do for that January 8th board meeting, okay? So point being is if you can't make that committee meeting, or if it's a committee that you're not part of in January, then we'll get that out in a recording, and you can listen to the entire presentation so that you're well informed when we get to January 8th. Other than that, that's the information that I know. Survey's going on. We want to compile all that data and then make an informed decision when we get to January. What questions does the board have regarding a referendum or the process or anything that I spoke about? All right, thank you.
All right, so moving on to agenda item 10, action items. 10A, change in 2023-24 staffing at RCHS.
Okay, so I'll try to explain this without having any kind of identifiable information. But we have a fairly unique opportunity here that I think we should consider taking advantage of. We currently have two building subs. We have a building sub primarily housed up here at the high school. We have a building sub primarily housed at the intermediate school. Anytime that maybe one of those buildings does not need the sub in full capacity, we can share it with the primary school, okay, or we can send that person down to the primary school. Often, we are still struggling to get subs, okay? And we know, historically speaking, that this is the time of year from now until really spring break when we will have the highest sub needs due to, specifically due to illnesses, okay? As the flu season hits, and remember, it's not just staff, but it's staff's families that hits. Many of our staff members have little tykes that if they get sick, they have to stay home, which means that they're out of the building. And so the ask is, because of the way some long-term subs were structured on both the front end of the school year and the back end of the school year, that we have an opportunity to hire a temporary position, a third building sub, okay, that would essentially start after the first of the year and go through spring break, this hot time that we're talking about, and to be able to have one more sub available to us. And when we crunch the numbers, it's essentially budget neutral. We are already needing a sub almost every single day. And so securing a person to be in our district and only work for us for this amount of time, if we're able to get that for budget neutral, seems like a win-win for everybody. So that's the ask. It would be a district-wide building sub. I know the agenda talks about high school. This would be a district-wide building sub, just like the other two are, and it would be kind of for a short term. Bless you. The months of January, February, and March, essentially. Any questions from that?
So do the permanent subs report at the same time as the regular staff when they're in the building and fill in as needed, where needed?
Correct. Yep. It could be for, hey, Mr. Umbihan's going to be out for the next 2 days, and that person takes it, or the spattering of this person's going to be gone for this block, and this person's going to be gone for this block, and they're used throughout. It's been very welcomed, the building subs in general. Have been a huge relief off of being able to fill one position. And the way it generally works at the buildings right now is that administration will still try to fill the subs as absences come in, knowing that there's still going to likely be that one phone call that comes in at, 7 o'clock that my kid just didn't break the fever, I've got to stay home. That's where they'll use the building subs, those last minute situations, generally speaking.
So this is a position that doesn't carry any benefits, they're just paid the sub rate, they're like guaranteed the sub rate paid for every day?
Yep, our long-term sub rate is the same per diem as our step one on our scale. Okay, so it would be a temporary position, but it's so temporary with the odds of somebody, technically they could get benefits for 2 months. They wouldn't get it the first month, it wouldn't take effect until February, but it's just unlikely. And even if it did, I've got that calculated into the budget neutral. Again, some of that has to do with identifiable information as it relates to the long-term sub-positions on either end.
Is there a motion to approve an additional district building sub from January 2nd, 2024 through March 31st, 2024?
I'll make that.
Motion made by Mr. Huntemer. Is there a second? Second, Mr. Bailing. Discussion. Mrs. Wertz?
Aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Aye.
All right. 10B, STING Program Coordinator position, 2023-24.
Okay, so the STING program is our after-school program by both the primary school and the intermediate school. It's funded by the 21st Century Learning Community, the CCLC grant. One of the things that we have quickly found is that the communication and the chain of command is disrupted because of the building principals having to take on additional duties, as well as Ms. Dolan, as it relates to answering questions. They were kind of the ones that wrote the grant, and then they got stuck with a lot of the work, right? And so The proposal is that we actually hire a STING program coordinator, one person funded by the grant. It's within the grant budget. It's an allowable cost to be the point of contact to handle staffing, student enrollments, parent questions, transportation, all of these things that we have to do instead of putting it on one of our administrators' plates. So again, it's funded by the grant, and I just think it will make the program and communication run that much smoother. That did go to the personnel committee as well, and they supported that position and are part of the job descriptions.
Is there a motion to approve the STING program coordinator position for 2023-24?
I'll make a motion.
Motion made by Mrs. Wertz. Is there a second?
I can second.
Second by Mrs. Dickman. Discussion? Aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
10C, private school students' participation in 6th through 8th grade co-curriculars.
All right, okay, so referring to policy 9270, and you can click on the link there if you want that exact policy, but it essentially says that the board may, doesn't have to, but it may allow any district who's being educated in a private school, if there's space available, to participate in any non-WIA sanctioned athletic events or co-curricular programs. Okay, traditionally, we have allowed our private school students to participate in football, wrestling, track and field primarily. Okay. However, we had a request from St. Mary's that their numbers, they have a 7th and 8th grade combined girls basketball team, and between those two grades, they do not anticipate having enough for a team. Okay, and so they are asking if space allows, which I believe we will have plenty of space, for any of those students wishing to do that, to participate in our 7th and 8th grade girls basketball team. That program runs after the first of the year and runs through mid to late February. When we do approve something like this, it is open to both any private school that we have, but if they offer the sport, we would encourage them to be involved in their school sport. Okay. So we're asking, that's how this agenda item came to play. In reviewing our policy, when we switched over to the Neola policy, past it had always been this long time just standing agreement that football, wrestling, and track, we would do this, but our policy actually says that the board needs to make that approval. So I neglected to catch that for the fall, so that's why it didn't come for football. We are bringing it now, asking for private schools to participate in 7th and 8th grade girls basketball, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade wrestling, track and field as it traditionally has for 7th and 8th graders in the spring, and then forensics, which we have allowed occasionally as well. And then next July, we'll make sure that we hit all of the ones that we know are going to happen for the year to be in compliance with our policy. So Ms. Selgaby's here as well if we have any specific questions about numbers or what we anticipate having, but I think this is a good thing for our students to have. So any questions from the board?
You mentioned Eagle School and St. Mary's. Would this also incorporate the Richland Baptist?
The Richland Baptist is not, they're a private school, but they are not a private school where we are the LEA over, we're the local educational agency over, because they do not accept any federal funding and have different status. So it would not come into play for that, although we could certainly do that if they were to ask, but at this point it would be St. Mary's and Eagle.
And if we approve this and students come from other schools to participate, they're responsible for transportation?
That's correct.
And we're only opening it up to 7th and 8th grade specifically, because I assume Eagle does offer 9 through 12, but they're not a part of.
Yeah, 9 through 12 brings in a whole different aspect as it relates to the WIA. So that would almost for sure not be allowed So it would be 7th and 8th grade, with the exception of wrestling, we typically allow 6th graders to wrestle at the middle school level.
All right, is there a motion to approve allowing students from private schools within our district boundaries to participate in co-curricular activities for the 2023-24 school year as presented?
I'll make it.
Motion made by Mr. Huntermer. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Dowdna. Discussion? Mr. Bailey?
Aye.
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 Aye. All right. I'll make a motion to move into closed session pursuant to under statutes 19.851(c) and/or F as appropriate to consider employment, promotion, and compensation of employees for purposes of discussing individual employee hiring and compensation, and Wisconsin statutes 19.851F, statutes 118.125, to discuss student open enrollment applications and individual pupil information related to those applications, and Wisconsin statutes 19.851E for the purposes of considering the sale of property. The board may take action on these issues in closed session if necessary and appropriate. At conclusion of the closed session, the board will entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting. Is there a second? Seconded by Mr. Oxel. Discussion. Mr. Oxel?
Aye.
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 Thank you.